Some breaking news now out of Ottawa. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has cancelled a planned trip tomorrow to Barbados. He's being criticized for being absent during nationwide demonstrations in support of an anti-pipeline protest in northern BC. The blockades have caused mass disruption to rail services across this country, and there's no sign of a resolution anytime soon. Canada's Indigenous Services Minister spoke to Global News today about what might be next as Ottawa tries to end the impasse. Here's David Akin.
It was early evening Saturday when Indigenous Services Minister Mark Miller emerged from an 8-hour meeting with leaders from the Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte. Members of that First Nation have blockaded a vital CN rail line east of Belleville, Ontario, since February the 7th.
The rule of law is also very...
Sunday, on the West Block with Mercedes Stevenson, Miller talked about that meeting.
They were very suspicious of me going in there. They thought it was perhaps a trick. It wasn't.
He said he was warned not to go to the blockade, but he thought that was the wrong move.
This was an opportunity to show a little bit of trust, talk to people who were very fearful standing out there feeling targeted by the entire country.
And Miller described the situation as both volatile and compelling.
We know our lessons from the past, that people can get hurt.
It sounds to me like you're very concerned about violence here.
Absolutely. We all should be concerned.
In addition to supporting the Wet'suwet'en of northern BC, this Mohawk First Nation has its own reasons for protest, including outstanding land claims, a continuing boil water advisory, and what it says is not enough federal funding. No one from the First Nation or the blockade would speak to Global News on camera about the Miller meeting, though off camera some say they are not optimistic of a quick resolution. Miller is one of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's closest friends. The two first met in high school. Miller was elected in 2015 to represent a downtown Montreal riding. He has served as a Canadian Forces reservist and is a lawyer by training. And he has recently learned to speak Mohawk. All those attributes will now be put to the test to help solve a crisis that is causing serious economic harm to the country.
We also have to look at ourselves as Canadians and say, do we use every peaceful method to resolve this situation? And that's the path that I prefer. It's frustrating to many. I've received many emails, calls, discussions about how people are suffering, the economy is suffering, there are fuel shortages that are imminent, and that weighs heavily on my mind.
Miller has given the Prime Minister some recommendations, though he would not say what they were, and he could not say when or how the blockade will be lifted. And so in the meantime, the blockade remains in place, and the federal cabinet will discuss next steps early next week. Robin?
David Akin in Ottawa. Thanks, David.